Wicked,
Woo!
a 2024 American music fantasy directed by John Chu and written by Winnie Holzman and Dana Fox. It is the first installment of a two-part film adaptation of the stage musical of the same name by Stephen Schwartz, which was loosely based on Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel, a reimagining of the Oz books in the 1939 film The Wizard of Oz. The film covers the musical's first act. It stars Cynthia Erivo as Elphaba and Ariana Grande as Glinda Upland, with Michelle Yeoh, Peter Dinklage, Jeff Goldblum, Boyan Yang, Marissa Bode, and Ethan Slater and Jonathan Bailey in supporting roles. Set in the land of Oz before Dorothy Gale's arrival from Kansas, the plot follows Elphaba, the future Wicked Witch of the West, and her friendship with her classmate Glinda, who becomes Glinda the Good. This film grossed $723 million worldwide on a $150 million budget, becoming the highest grossing Oz film, the highest grossing musical film adaptation of all time, the 12th highest grossing film released by Universal, and the fifth highest grossing film of 2024. Its sequel will be released in November of this year, and it has garnered 3 Academy Award nominations for Best Picture, Best Actress for Erivo, and Best Supporting Actress for Grande, and was the selection of our guests of Sticky Notes Conversations, Erika Washington. Erika, what have you to say of Wicked?
Woo! Loved it. So I'll start by saying that I am a fan of musicals.
Okay.
Like, I love musicals. Any chance I get to New York and see a Broadway show, I'm going to do it. I also have a very extensive playlist on Spotify that I use, and that's what I work to usually. When I turn on music, I turn on, it's called Writing My Happiness, and that's where I do the majority of my work is listening to musicals. There's something about it that energizes me and inspires me, and I can listen to it in the background and it's not distracting, right? And so I have listened to the Wicked soundtrack for years, years and years and years. So I already knew all the words. Even before I'd ever seen the show, like on a stage, I already knew all the words. And so, but actually being able to see it, and I think seeing it on the big screen, first thing I'll say is like the cinematography is beautiful. Like it's so pretty to look at. And, you know, it's just grand, the whole thing. And I think that the casting was also excellent. I think that even looking at like a lot of the extras, the munchkins, they're very colorful. You know, it was a lot of DEI, I guess, in there. Like there's just a lot of diversity in the cast. And
it was made the right year. Yeah.
And right. And so I loved all of that. And although I had known, again, all of the words, it was different to watch it. And when I watched it, and the reason why I even suggested this movie for this show, talking about, you know, Black films, is because how it made me feel. Okay. And with Cynthia Erivo playing Elphaba, it took on this space of really feeling like how Black women have been treated for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it was really just off the color of her skin. That really, she was not deformed in any way. She didn't, you know, no one even thought of her as a witch. Like no one cared about magical powers, even though she showcased them as a child. No one was like, oh, it's because she's got magic. Like that's why. It was literally off of the color of her skin that she was being judged, and judged harshly by everyone, including her own father. I know. Who was really crappy to her. And so watching this movie, it made me think about Sarah Bartman, and who was a South African woman in born in the 1700s, who was paraded around because of what she looked like. And she was also called the Venus Hottentot. And so she had this very large derriere, and, and her vagina looked different, I guess, compared to whatever they thought it was supposed to look like. And so she was on display like a circus animal, and was even after she died.
That's right.
And it was just about how she looked, and they didn't treat her like a human being. They didn't think she was a human being. And it also made me think of Lucy Betsy, and I never pronounce her name right, so I apologize ahead of time, but it's Arnika. I think it's Arnika. Lucy, Betsy, and Arnika. They were 3 black women, enslaved black women in the United States, who were used as guinea pigs by J. Marion Sims, who's known as the father of gynecology. So, he helped create all these different instruments, but he did it off of experimenting on black women because we didn't feel pain.
Right.
And so since we didn't feel pain, they could just do whatever they wanted to. And so it also made me think of that. And it made me think of how Elphaba just wanted to be. And even at a moment when she had a chance, because the wizard asked, basically, do you not want to be green? And she'd say no. She was like, no, that's not what I want. There was something else that she wanted more, which was to protect these animals that were being caged. And so, she wasn't thinking about herself. She was thinking about her community. So again, I go back to thinking about black women and how black women have been this source of power and this source of community, and have held neighborhoods and whole communities together because they felt like they had to, and they did it, in spite of like whatever harm it was causing to them. And also thinking about the relationship between Elphaba and Glinda. Right. And so here you are with this pretty princess looking young woman, blonde, who
she's popular.
She's very popular, and she wants to take on Elphaba as a project. She's like, let me make her a project, and I can make you better, and I can make you different. And she didn't have any desire to be different, and she, quote unquote, or I should say in air quotes, befriends her. And Elphaba gives her a gift of allowing her to then take the classes that the teacher didn't even want her in. And she allows her into this space or welcomes her into this space. And even in the end, when they announce over the loudspeaker that Elphaba is a witch and she did all this and she shouldn't be trusted, Glinda stands there.
Yeah.
She stands there and was like, well, you could just go apologize to the wizard.
Sure.
Like it was so lost on her own humanity. She did not see humanity in Elphaba. And so all of this for me just sort of like brings home just this cycle that I've seen constantly, especially in the work that I do, and especially thinking about politics and how the 92% of Black women that shows up in elections and, not even just this election, but every single one of them.
Right.
Yet, and we're thanked for 5 minutes, and the whole trust Black women and that sort of, it's a campaign because it's a fad, but then it goes away. And so, but we don't feel that sense of unity. I also think about Ain't I a Woman, and think about, that speech about, am I not as deserving for a man to hold a door open and to not be caught in the rain and that sort of thing. And that came around the time of, women's suffrage, of white women trying to advocate for the right to vote for themselves. And when it came down to it and they had to choose, well, if we give you the right to vote, we have to, like, you can't have Black women a part of this. And so they just like, okay, no, not y'all. Like, we get thrown off to the curb because, we need this one thing. And to me, that was Glinda. Glinda was
100%.
Glinda was like, so yeah, I'm going to stay, because she saw what happened. She was there for the whole thing with her own eyes and saw everything that happened, and she still chose the side of what was good for her. And not good for the whole. And so for me, it really resonated in this way so deeply that I was just like, I wonder if other people see this. Like, do you see what I see? And can we use this as a vehicle to talk about it? And I don't know if change will be made so much, but is it clear enough on this giant screen where millions of people had to see it with those type of numbers, right? And probably saw it more than once. Did they see like how self-centered certain folks can be, and you're not including the whole of everybody when we're talking about fighting for what's right and what our rights are? Because if it's good for Black women, it's good for everybody else.
Well, I think that you're right. Millions of people saw this film, and I think there's going to be an audience that are going to see the connections that you made, but there is also going to be an audience, and we can argue the percentages, that just see this, reimagining of the Wizard of Oz, and they made the good witch, now she's actually kind of like the ambiguously bad witch, or what have you, right? Or they're going to look at it and they're not going to see the color, right? And whether or not that's because of the privilege of not really having to associate it with it in that way, or because they can tell themselves, yeah, but Cynthia Erivo's green in the movie, right? And there's no other real prominent Black person of color in this film, or I should say Black presenting in this color in this film. So I think
that's the point, though, right? Because there's plenty of Black people in the movie,
right? But they're there, but they're not.
But these are the others. But here we are with this person who actually looks different. And she's actually different than the other, because even her sister,
her
sister's light skinned,
very light,
very light,
and I
like noticeably,
And I actually was a little. What bothered me a little bit, and I had to remember, like, it's a little bit in the stage play, that there wasn't more of a relationship between the two of them. In the film, especially when people are coming down on Elphaba, and they cut to the sister, and the sister's not reaching out to her sister.
She wanted space from her too, because she was tired of being around the different person.
Right.
Yeah, but she wanted space, but she was also, I guess, at the same time, she is seeing how she is being a little othered by the Munchkin guy that is coming on to her because of his fakeness of why he's involved with her, is only because he wants to catch the eye of Glinda, because he is being as phony as white presenting people tend to be in this film. This was I saw it on stage and fell in love with the whole story of it. And I love, like you just said, like you spoke earlier about liking historical fiction. I like historical fiction, but I also like reimagining something, even if it is fiction, and looking at it from a different lens, in the way that this reimagined The Wizard of Oz. So I appreciated that. But I too could not help but see the othering of Elphaba and being taken in by it, the fakeness of Glinda, who, as fake as she is, I'm gonna go out and Vincent, you came in earlier to saying it, she gets on your nerves because that's how good a job Ariana Grande is doing in that role. She's nominated for an Academy Award, and I think it's well deserved. But so is Cynthia Erivo in this film, and the emotions that both of them are putting through in this film is palpable and bleeds off the screen. And actually, that is what kept me invested in the movie. The yin and yang of this Black woman and this white woman. Yes, that story was like, it was excruciating to witness, but I too, like you, wonder, are people seeing the threads that are being laid down here, especially because, at the end of the film, the black woman, the wicked witch, the othered, is now in all her supreme power at the end. And, as much as she is still in her wicked witchness, she's the one that's flying off with the cape. She is the hero at the end, right? She gets the superhero moment at the end. So I'm wondering if people are actually seeing those threads that are or the breadcrumbs that are being put in this film. But it was a lot deeper than I expected.
Right.
A lot deeper. And I don't know if I even picked up on them seeing the stage play as much as I did here.
Well, I think, to why we're talking about it on here, I think when it came up before, and I've said, I know I've seen this on stage at least twice, and have no memories of it. Like it really left no mark on me whatsoever.
Yeah,
I do my best not to yuck people's yum. So, it wasn't my thing. People seem to like it. That's your thing. Right. It didn't leave a mark on me. And I do think part of the reason is it's sort of one of my pet peeves generally about science fiction and genre fiction, where these white creators love to talk about race without actually having any black people. Like, we don't get that yucky black people in my stuff. And I do think as a text and historically, this has been a story where they talk about, we need to celebrate diversity, and, this person's being picked on because they're different, but we don't have any black people involved in it. And it fell under that. But I was fascinated by this casting, because when you actually cast Cynthia Erivo in this role, as you all have said, there is an edge to this story that I don't think you have on stage when everyone is white.
Right.
And the fact that Cynthia Erivo is this black woman is very much a black woman, regardless of the green makeup. I do think it was a choice to make her sister this very light-skinned, almost passing woman, so that the one true, not true, but the one visually black person is the one being just sort of ostracized, being teased, and to being set up, and this Glinda character who textually is set up as this kind of fake, superficial character. When you contrast this very blonde, very white, very pink wearing, ultra feminized, very fake character with Elphaba, but now being played by a black woman, there is this wonderful edge to it that, I'm not going to go so far as to say, I loved it, because I do think like 2.5 hours. Like, I don't know if the juice was worth the squeeze for 2.5 hours, but it certainly kept me invested way more than I think I would have been if Cynthia Erivo was not cast. Having said that, the irony, or to contradict myself, I think Ariana Grande is better than Cynthia Erivo in this. Like, I think Ariana Grande was actually great in this role, and she's got this pep, and she's got this sort of real tongue-in-cheek performance that she does in it, and I think Cynthia Erivo is good and everything, but this sort of dynamic between them, I thought, I was like, Cynthia, I need you to bring it a little more, because Ariana Grande is really killing it. But besides that, much like you, and I figured this when you heard, like I knew, like this was printing money, and they knew it when they made it, and you can see it on the screen. The set design, the costumes, the cinematography, this is something that I thought justified attaching itself to an old classic film like The Wizard of Oz, because it was a big production, and it was, just everything was big about it. And I appreciate that just on the level of craft, just on the level of craft. So yeah, I 100% get it.
Yeah, the details.
Yeah,
of it were beautiful. The library, place where the books are.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like it was just beautiful. Like there was so many.
Rare books.
Right. Exactly. And so, seeing that and seeing how much time they put into it, and also knowing that they film both of them back to back. That feels unusual. I don't know how often that actually happens, where you film such a big movie and then you film the sequel at the same time, because they already knew. They're like, this is, this is going to be it. So whoever, really invested into everything, which I appreciate. And, I to your point about Ariana Grande, I do think she was amazing. I think that she's an amazing actress. She's an amazing singer. Like, I think people don't sometimes give her the credit because she is sort of flouncy and what have you.
I am people.
So
okay,
people such as yourself that don't give her that credit, because she's also done a lot of like poppy type stuff, right? And so
wasn't she like a Nickelodeon?
Yes, she was.
100%.
And so, this gave her a chance to do more, whereas Cynthia Erivo,
she's been out there.
Right.
And this is,
and you expect it.
You do. And also I didn't know how I felt about her before
The
actress, because there was something that happened. I think it was around the time when she filmed the Harriet Tubman movie. Yeah. Or was it called Harriet. And she said some things about African American people that really
British.
because she's British. And so, that really turned me off from her as a person, because I'm just like, well, why do I want to see your movies if that's how you feel about us? But also understanding the same way I said earlier about us being siloed, non-African American people don't know what that struggle is to be Black in America. And so, but then you can come here and play a Black person, that has lived in America, but you still may not get it, because life is not going to be the same for you. Your life was, or your ancestors weren't destroyed in the same way that ours were destroyed. And not just talking about slavery. We could also just be talking about, the late 1800s into the 1900s and Reconstruction and all of that. And so there's so many layers to that. But I will say that she just really didn't sit well with me. And so probably why I didn't see the Aretha movie, but I saw her in this and I was like, okay, well, she's fine, I guess, I like her well enough. But I mean, I think she did a good job. I don't know if she was less than Ariana Grande, but I will say that I appreciate her doing this movie. And I think that if it would have been, a non-Black woman, I wouldn't have felt what I felt about the movie. I wouldn't have even, I don't even know if I would have saw it the same way, because again, I've listened to the cast recording forever and I love Idina Menzel. I love her voice, Rent, all of the things she's been in. But Wicked never affected me in the way that it did.
I'm curious.
I was about to say, it's funny you admit that, because there's a wonderful, at this point, I assume Wicked people have seen Wicked, so I'm not spoiling this.
Right.
And as you said, the original Broadway duo who played these roles are Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, who I adore as an actress.
Yes.
And they have cameos in, and I said if I was Ariana Grande's manager, I would have said no to this, because it really was, they're only on screen for like 2 minutes together in their cameo, but as soon as you see them, it's like the Cat Williams joke, like a Chrysler 300 looks like a Phantom until a Phantom pulls up.
Yeah.
And that moment with the two of them, it was like, oh yeah, this is it right here.
Grown-ups have entered the
Right,
chat.
the grown-ups have come into the movie. It's like, well, can we just
see this?
Can we just stay with them? Because they're fantastic in that one, like a minute or two.
Yeah.
So
And to your point, you know, Idina Menzel can kind of stay there because Cynthia Erivo's given a different type of vibe to
right.
Elphaba.
It's a whole different.
It's a whole different lane. Different lane. Whereas Ariana Grande looking like Kristen Chenoweth's elbow next to her.
Right. Like she's doing Kristen Chenoweth cosplay.
Right. It's like
I'm dressed up like Kristen Chenoweth for Halloween.
It's not doing her any favor.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, we're about to show you popular. It's right here.
Right.
It's Kristen Chenoweth.
Which was my favorite song. And, you know, I do think Ariana Grande.
He came in skipping to the studio. We're like, Vince, how you doing? I'm popular.
I thought it was the best number in the film. I really did.
I mean, she's swinging around,
Yeah.
chandelier and all of that. It's all, the choreography is great. Like,
Choreography's great.
This just shows like when you really invest in a movie, what it can be.
Yeah.
Like, so it sets the bar so high.
Yeah.
And so if any other musicals turn into movies in this way, like the bar is just super, super high.
The choreography is beautiful, but what also makes it work is that the choreography is being done on actual sets.
Yeah.
Because it would have been real easy, even though there is some CGI, it would have been real easy for them to just basically do just all big green screens and have them just on like a sound stage, you know, like a decorated sound stage. But no, they talk about how they wanted to build some actual sets so that you had the scale of Oz, you know, of Munchkinland, like it felt in 1939 when it was actual sets, actual buildings that you were walking, halls that you were walking into. And I think for me, that really helped sell the film because there's a part of me, especially because the movie, some of the music, especially even in the beginning and at the end, has a bit of the more contemporary movie tone to it as opposed to something adapted from Broadway. I think one of the reasons why you were saying like Defying Gravity doesn't really get over with for you, Vincent, in this film is because it sounds like a movie musical as opposed to the Broadway production of it that you would have on stage. And the film, when it starts off, some of the music has a little bit of that vibe, almost like the Hans Zimmer vibe to me in the beginning. So I was like, oh, where are we going with this? But then when you actually go to the actual sets and you see the people dancing in lands and then on the windows and everything like that, it's like, okay, all right, y'all build out the Broadway play the right way, and now I'm in this universe. I'm in this world. I'm just not watching a movie. I'm inside the play, and I really appreciated that. That's what got it over for me.
Yeah.
Here's something, I don't know where this fits into this conversation, but I took note of it because, you know, obviously this is part one, and part of the job of part one is to sell you on part two. And the two things that kind of made me go, okay, I'll watch, you know, Jeff Goldblum comes in at the end and you assume he's going to be much more present in the second part. And, you know, always time for Jeff Goldblum. Again, spoiler, you know, Michelle Yeoh has a role throughout the film, but then there's a turn at the end. And you know I love evil Michelle Yeoh. There's a moment when she's walking up the hallway with flying monkeys behind her. I said, okay, now this I can deal with. But reading about the second part of the story, because again, I've seen it, but I'd just forgotten the details. there is a moment towards the end where the monkeys become the flying monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually body horror with the wings.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that moment was so well done.
Yes.
And so striking. And I know there's going to be some body horror in the second part. And I appreciated in this huge, big budget thing where you have to assume accountants and lawyers and studio people said, we got to sell pajamas, we got to sell lunch boxes, we got to do all this stuff. They had this moment of pure horror. Again, pure body horror, because that's what the story demands.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciated that, because I do think oftentimes with these big hoo-ha films, they play it safe. Mm-hmm. And that was a surprising moment to me. You know, even the moment where the monkeys are breaking the glass,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, this is surprisingly intense right now.
Well, there's the difference between this being a Universal Pictures production and a Disney production.
Okay.
Disney, I think you're right. They massage out that body horror or is in shadow or something like that. Universal, which famously is known for the Universal monsters, they kind of know how to fold that in to a story. They got a history with it. And they're not afraid of marrying the two, because while this is definitely for a family, they recognize this is a family of all ages. And if it scares the little kids, the parents are going to be right there for them.
And
They'll be
you're
like,
just going to have to deal with little Billy's nightmares for the next 2 weeks.
that's all.
Yeah.
He'll be fine. Sleep with your brother.
You know, or not. That's what therapy's for.
But exactly. But also, and I haven't read the books. I started the first book in the Wicked series. And just in the first couple of chapters, it's really gory. And I've heard that it's really, really dark. And so I was actually like, oh, do I have time to read a book before so I can layer that into this conversation? But I didn't have time for that. But what I did get to, like, you know, Elphaba as a baby, like she bit off somebody's finger. Like it was like it was really gory. And so, and I was like, oh, maybe this is not for me either. Because again, the gore, it's not for me. But I do appreciate how, you know, the monkeys came in and how she showed how she did what she did. And because they asked her to, you know, and she wanted to please the wizard. And the wizard, which I don't know if this is a spoiler, but that's her father. Like, the wizard is her father. And
Okay,
so
that was a spoiler.
That was
And
a pretty
so-
big spoiler, actually.
oh, sorry, my bad. I mean, to me, it's obvious, right?
he's Darth Vader.
It's obvious, right? You know, he mentions it. I always wanted to be a parent, and you know, like him daughter or whatever. Right? It's not. And if
Well, it's Jeff Goldblum.
Right, true. But if you go back to the beginning, that's his voice.
Right,
When he was, you know, dancing, drinking her green elixir, you know, sipping on the scissor. Right.
I like Mom.
Oh, Mom was,
Mom was ready for. She was ready for old boy to leave. So,
All right, Mom, I see you.
so you know, and I guess that's what happens when you have an affair with a green baby. I guess. That's how the sinning is uncovered.
That's how it works.
But what I always wondered is, did the father know that wasn't his child, or did he assume that
Something
she was
went
just
wrong.
something went wrong, or did he treat her that way, not just because she's green, but also because your mama was, you know,
Right.
stepping out?
I don't know. I don't remember that detail.
I don't know.
I mean, they didn't say.
They don't say, and
I thought maybe it would come up in the second part.
well, it's not really a talking point in the stage play, right? And I didn't read the book. It probably does spell it out more in the book. And famously, even from the original Wizard of Oz series, you know, those series of books by Frank Baums, those were a lot darker than what the Wizard of Oz film was. So they historically has, you know, they massage the adaptations for a wider audience. But I don't know whether or not Dad knew or not. I want to think that, you know, in the movie, not in the stage play, but in the movie, he gave his baby to a bear. So
That's also true.
Maybe he knew, maybe he didn't know.
The bear was a nanny. So there's that.
The bear was a nanny.
No, he had qualifications.
The bear was a nanny.
Dulcie Bear had qualifications.
That's true.
It wasn't just some random Berenstein bear in the forest.
It's not like you gave him to Michael Jackson and said, let's go in the cave. Michael Jackson, take my baby.
Never mind. I'm going to give it to the bear.
I'm going to give it to the bear.
The bear was very loving, though.
It was
very
Much more loving than the parent, for sure.
Yeah.
most certainly.
I mean, even the mom didn't even say anything when he said, take it away.
Yeah.
Well,
She said nothing.
because mom knew.
Okay, but still, it's still her child, even if it came from lust. It was still her child. It's a love child. That was her love child.
That's right. She rolling around with a traveling salesman.
Right? Drinking the green elixir.
Green elixir. Like, whoa.
Whoa, indeed. All right. Okay, but before we, because it's getting a little late, let's ask and answer the question, is Wicked a Black film?
You know, I've thought a lot about this question, obviously. I think that this version, this movie, Wicked, feels like a Black film because it lends to the Black experience historically and in current times. And so, and I feel like if you just pay attention in that way, it very much lends itself to being a story of the Black experience. So I'm going to say yes.
Vincent?
I'll go along with that. I'm not going to fight that hard for it as a Black film, but I do think, again,
Meaning that if somebody argued
that it's not. And you know, certainly just looking at the text, because I do think any argument about this film's Blackness revolves around this very specific casting. But that casting, you know, pardon the pun, changes the complexion of the whole thing. It really does.
I wonder how much is that is part of the director, John Chu.
Well, you know, again, I did not pay attention to this film and its development at all until Cynthia Erivo was cast. Like, she was cast, and then it was like, okay, I got it. You know, it's like Micheaux Mission stuff. Oh God, Black people are involved. I guess I got to pay attention to it. But I do wonder about the conversations that led up to she's in the running for it, and then she gets cast. But you know, honestly, you know what would have been fascinating? This has been my argument about like The Wiz forever, where like I think it would have been more interesting if Lena Horne had played the Wicked Witch and Mabel King had played Glinda. Like, imagine if Cynthia Erivo would have played Glinda and then, you know, have a white girl under the green makeup. What's that dynamic do? Like could a Black woman have like could they have gotten, you know, I'm just thinking about Black woman with blonde hair. Like, could they have gotten Beyonce to play Glinda?
But
let's assume it's a parallel universe where she can act. Let's assume. I know, but like, you see what I'm saying?
no, I was going to say, you're right, because then the question is, you're not necessarily seeing it as a Black movie.
Right.
You know,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'm moving the pieces around.
Yeah.
Because certainly if a white woman is playing Elphaba, it's not a Black movie.
Right.
But it really is this specific alchemy of the two of them that I think it is. I think it works as a Black movie. And you?
Oh, I thought it was a Black woman movie when I saw that Cynthia Erivo was cast. I was like, oh, we're going to be reviewing this. This is a Black film. If for no other reason, because she is in the lead of this film. That has been enough of in our criteria in the history of the Micheaux Mission. Now, does history, will they award this, see this as a black film? I think if you haven't seen it, outside eyes, like, I don't know if that's a black film. It's about the Wizard of Oz. I don't know, you know. But if you watch it and really see what the text is telling you, I think it's undeniably a black film.
Now, what I am fascinated about going forward, because you said you liked the music, had you seen it on stage?
I actually was one of the few that I had not seen on stage.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So I am curious, but you did see it on stage.
Yes, I did.
So like, I am wondering about that dynamic. Like, I saw it on stage with the all white cast, and now I've seen the movie. And how does that affect your?
Well, I would say I've seen enough of, like, because I had listened to the music, so I knew who the characters were and I knew who played them, that it never crossed my mind to think about it as skin color, besides it just being she's green, right? It never crossed my mind to think about how people are treating her because she's green, because of her skin tone, but more or less just because she's a witch. But also, I hadn't seen the context around the songs, right? And so I think that's the other thing about this movie is that even people I think who don't love musicals could get down with this because there's enough space between songs. It isn't song after song after song.
Yes, there is.
It wasn't like all of a sudden we're just singing for no reason. It actually feels like it fits. But I think that also thinking about in the beginning, there are the posters of Elphaba, the propaganda, and they look nothing like her.
Of course not. Of course not.
And so it just made me think about caricatures of black people, you know, or in blackface or whatever, and how evil they are, you know, out to get the white ladies or whatever it is, you know, black men we're going to do, and, you know, whatever that is. And so that also led to, you know, me thinking about this from the lens of, through the lens of a black person and as a black woman, and being misconstrued as something that I'm not because of how I look and not for who I am. And so, yeah, I don't know if that I'd see it the same way if it would have just been all white characters. I probably wouldn't. I probably would have still enjoyed it, but I would have enjoyed it because I like musicals, not because it wouldn't have hit me in a deeper level in that way. And I think also, again, it came out right around time of the election. And so, know, there's that added a layer of tiredness to
little blonde haired white woman betraying you. It was like, here we are, 53%.
Saying they're going to do one thing and then do something else because we vote in our own interest and we protect white supremacy, not, you know, the feminist majority.
All right. Well, we've come to the point where
But Popular is a very catchy song.
It is a good song. I love it. I love Defying Gravity too, though.
Would you recommend that people see Wicked?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. All 2 hours and 45 minutes of it. Watch it.
It's a lot.
You know what? You know, our attention spans have gotten shorter over the years, so we need something that grounds us and keeps us still. This and Club Shay Shay, you could just sit still for a couple hours.
This and Club Shay Shay live.
I mean,
I didn't see that comparison.
I mean, his shows are super long. Sometimes longer than they need to be. But, you know, there's a lot happening there. But, you know, folks are sitting still for it. So I believe in people that we can sit still for a couple of hours and watch something.
Yeah.
So, yes, I recommend it.
Vincent?
I think the pluses outweigh the minuses. I do think they're fair amount. I do think it's really long, but I do think there's enough in there to kind of keep you there. So I fall on the side of I would recommend it.
Must be a lot of pluses because this is real long and it's part one. So let's remember that.
Yeah, but I think part two is where it gets really bananas.
It does.
Like, I actually don't know if part two is going to be black because it's just bananas.
Well, I don't think part two is going to be necessarily as black, but it will be interesting because it'll still be Cynthia Erivo. So so the subtext will be there, but you know, this is not much of a spoiler alert, but part two takes place kind of like in the same time of the actual story of the Wizard of Oz.
Oh, Nessa Rose in them pretty shoes.
Yeah. So,
womp womp.
this, So that'll actually be interesting. That'll actually be very interesting and actually real fun to take on. I'm actually looking forward to it. So yes, I would recommend that people see Wicked. And if you're watching on streaming, you have no choice because you've bought it. So
don't even get me started on that.
Why couldn't you come in March?
Not the same. Because we could have rented it.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, I offered to see if you wanted to do a love story since it was Valentine's week, but y'all said no. So y'all wanted to see it. Y'all wanted to buy it. You just want to use me as a fall guy, but y'all want it. Now you have it forever.
Now we have it forever.
Oh.
We do. We're wicked together.
Yay. Now we'll be wicked for good for the next.